Was this amateur hour, Nicholas?
What do you mean?
Your green screen. Peep it. Bottom corner. Come on. Center. Get your shit together. Come on.
What?
Your screen. It's off center. Fix it. I'm seeing some dead space in the corner there. Come on.
My green screen? What are you talking about? I have it lined up perfectly, unlike last time where we were off.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages, the Yorkshire Gooniverse and Geeks Worldwide Radio proudly presents to you the greatest podcasting team in the world. He's the flustered fry guy, Nick Friar. I'm your friendly neighborhood backcracker, Dr. Joe. And together we are the TLDR Comic Book Club, baby. Your thing is a little off center. I don't know, you're going to tilt your camera or something, but I'm seeing a little black space.
Oh, I see what you're talking about now.
Yeah, come on. Fix your shit, Friar.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. There you go. That was going to drive me nuts.
Yeah, no, that's fair. No, I'm surprised I didn't even notice that beforehand, but I am doing very well. Glad to be hanging out with our Bredley neighborhood backcracker.
I am Bredley.
Yeah. So we are doing back-to-back mainline episodes for the first time in a little while, which is great. Love it because Lord knows I have a book that I've been itching to talk about. Actually, Joe, looking at my list, because there's a good chance we're going to do a trade as well next week, but who knows? I have so many books that are coming to an end at just the right time. It's almost like I've developed a quality system where it's just, it's really easy, just one after the other. Obviously we have our Excel sheets, but it's just weird how I feel more backed up than usual. And I know that there's medication for that. I know that's what you're gonna say. Yeah, I know. But I think that with the Excel sheet and everything like that has been huge for us. But if we don't do a trade next week, that is going to be because we will have a Friar side chat. Not saying we have anything that works or not necessarily, but the only place you can find those are on our audio channel. So make sure you subscribe over there. What?
Next week would be a solicit, not a trade, Chief.
Would be a solicit, not a trade?
Yeah.
Oh, because we talk. Yes, because we have other stuff in the works.
Yeah. See,
yes, okay.
I don't know what happened all of a sudden, but when I'm the guy that's on point, Nicholas,
well, normally we wouldn't do that, but I forgot we do have stuff in the works. That is a fair point. But either way, subscribe to our audio channels, whether it's Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Geeks Worldwide Radio, SoundCloud, or I think I said Spotify already, Amazon. Leave a 5-star rating and review, or the highest rating review that you can leave over there, please. 5 stars only or better. Otherwise, you're going to learn the real meaning of backcracker, which I think you guys are starting to get the real definition of that to start the show today. You ready to get to catching up? Or do we have? Oh no, you got what Superman anniversary? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently today, however many years ago, Superman made his debut.
Oh.
Yeah, so I got my Superman hoodie on today.
Nice.
And we love soups, but there was something.
Or a chowder guy.
You know what? Yeah, big chowder guy. No Manhattan chowder. Get that shit out of my face.
That's
New England all the way.
Yeah. I like corn chowder though.
Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Do you? I don't know if I'm a big corn chowder guy.
I can mix it up once in a while, but I've gotten, but chowder definitely over regular soup personally.
Really? I'm not a big soup guy, to be honest with you. Soup is not a meal. I don't really,
I've become it more so.
You can take your fucking soup and chuck it for all I care.
I just got to be careful because I may or may not live with someone who absolutely adores soups. So, anyways,
well, that is fine. That is fine. I'm saying I am not a soup guy, just like I'm not a salad guy, which is painfully obvious if you've ever met me in person.
Okay. Well, I don't even know how to segue out of that into catching up. Maybe you shouldn't put those on your salads, catch up. But anyways, what have you been reading since we last convened?
So I read a shit ton prior to last episode. I did not read a ton this week. Busy weekend, with Patriots Day, we were out and about. So the Mario movie, Nicholas.
Nice.
Wonderful movie. Enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
Swagans enjoyed it as well. It was
good.
A fun movie.
Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff came out this week too that we had to read.
Yeah. Yes and no.
Wow, okay.
I don't feel like there was a ton. I feel like there have been weeks where we've had a lot more to read, and I've struggled to read everything in a particular week, and I didn't really. I kind of got through everything
fairness to you
this week.
I had 3 books that I have dibs on right now that came out this week, and a banner week for indie comics on those
Well,
3 titles alone.
a banner week for Image, for show,
Mhm.
for show. But anyways, I caught up on TMNT Usagi Yojimbo issue 1.
Nice.
Awesome,
Yeah?
fantastic, fantastic. Loved
Awesome.
it. Loved
I
every second of it. It was great too the way Sakai wrote it. So it starts off with Usagi. You feel like you're seeing him and all the familiar characters. Um, Typically where Usagi Yojimbo is, it's either an alternate Usagi universe with the same characters, or it's just sort of Usagi sort of in the future. But anyways, it starts off, the first half of the book is Usagi, and then it sort of has like this like little like this panel of going, huh? Like it's a bit of a cliffhanger, and then you get the Ninja Turtle stuff, and then at the end it ends with those two, entities meeting. It was awesome. So I don't know how long this is supposed to be, 5-6 issues, something like that. But it was fantastic. It scratched me right where I itched.
Nice. That's great to
Yeah,
hear. I know
yeah.
you've been having a lot of trouble with that too. Back cracker, not back scratcher. But I'll tell you what too. Another crossover I can't wait for. We've been
I
enjoying the
can't reach. My
TMNT.
arms are little.
Yeah, the TMNT Mighty Morphin Power Rangers has been great with Ryan Parrott and Dan Mora. But we also got the TMNT Street Fighter one. I'm very
Oh
excited to
yes.
see how that comes out. Well, I actually don't know the creative team there, but just seeing those two properties together is promising. As for me catching up, I read the second issue of Monarch, which is written by Rodney Barnes. It's been a solid issue, first 2 issues. The third one came out last week. Didn't get a chance to get on top of that because I had a lot of stuff to read for this week. I did read Nemesis Reloaded issue 4 Kick-Ass series. It's so good. And again, if you haven't read the original Nemesis, you don't have to read Nemesis Reloaded. It's addressed pretty early in the series, so very early in the series. So definitely go check that out. Get on it if you haven't already. You can go back and listen to my our episode on the original Nemesis series as well. Either way, fun stuff on both of them, and they're not stepping on each other's toes, even though this is a reboot. You can still enjoy both. But let's get to the new comics out this week, Joe, because I do have a lot I want to get to. But start us off with Marvel, please.
All right, we have the Amazing Spider-Man issue 24, X-Force issue 39, She-Hulk issue 12, Nightcrawlers issue 3, Yoda issue 6, shortened title because I feel that is self-explanatory. Red Goblin issue 3, Extreme X-Men issue 5, Hallows Eve issue 2, New Mutants Lethal Legion issue 2, Avengers Assemble Omega issue 1, Bishop War College issue 3, Hellcat issue 2, Star Wars Sana Staros issue 3, Warlock Rebirth issue 1, Captain America Unforgiven. That was a book I did actually want to read. I haven't yet. Curious about that one.
The Cold War stuff seems kind of interesting in general. Like
Yeah.
I'd read some of the Captain America stuff early, and then I didn't like the Steve Rogers one as much. The Sam Wilson one was a little more interesting, but I kind of fell off on both just because we've talked about like the indie comics have generally more compelling stories. We spend more time with Marvel characters on the big screen. So, anyways,
Yeah. So, but that one piqued my interest. The Excellent issue 2. I think that might have been the Excellent X-Men issue 2, but
either
whatever. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur issue 5, and then Nick.
way.
Did we know that Punisher was only going to be a 12 issue
Yes.
series? Okay.
Yes.
So I forgot that. But it makes sense because
All is right with the world now.
It's been building up. But Punisher issue 11 dropped this week, man. And baby,
Yeah.
was it something else?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, the entire issue is really good. They've been doing a lot of stuff with Maria Castle that's been really interesting, especially later on in the series. She wasn't in the mix originally, and we get a lot more cool stuff here. And there's something that happens really late in the issue in general that's the jaw dropper stuff that Joe's alluding to. That was really cool. And I looking at how the series is going to end, there's so much up in the air right now, and this has been so good. Anything could happen. So this has been Jason Aaron has done a great job with the writing. And we've talked before about how this is a 2-artist team because you have a lot of flashback stuff, a lot of stuff in the present day. Jesus Saiz and Paul Azteca. I believe Saiz is doing the in the present artwork. And
Yeah.
he does. I love that. Personally, I like that more. I think they both fit for like the parts of the story that they're telling. But there's an image where the Avengers are in the mixture. That's obviously no secret when you see the cover with Captain America and Punisher on it. But there is one Avenger in particular who Punisher has a panel with, and it's like a landscape shot, Joe. It's like at the bottom of a page. I just what I'm talking about. Yeah, okay. I don't want to say with who, but it is like, well, shit. That's
Yeah.
like it happens so quick, but it's like that. I like was reading it on the train going into work today, and I was like, damn, man, like that's pretty impressive for the Punisher, and it's very cold.
Yeah, yeah, and there was another panel with another Avenger where I'm reading it and I go, oh, this is how it's going to this is how we're gonna bring Frank Castle back. And nope. Nope. But what I love too is that the flashback stuff's been great because it's been from Maria's perspective, and just trying to dig into, Frank Castle as a human being and all of his flaws and all of his PTSD and all the shit. Like, because when you see Punisher, you just know Frank Castle as Punisher, right? Always and forever. This is really giving you Frank Castle as Frank Castle, and it's been a great way. And I think they've done it really well, actually, because I think they started doing this around issue 5 or 6, where we've been getting those flashback panels, and you don't realize it, but essentially what you're getting is you're getting that build up to the infamous scene, the event, I should say, that leads Frank Castle to snap and to become the Punisher. Right, because maybe you kind of saw it coming, but I feel like they've been building it in a way where if they never got to that, it wouldn't have changed the story at all. You would just be sort of getting the character, from a different perspective. But I love that they in the way that they built up to it, and the art's been great, and everything's and there's a bit of a callback here too, from events that happened at the beginning, of the series, with Frank as a child. So this was an excellent issue. I can't wait for the finale and to see how this thing all wraps up.
There was, that the panels that you and I touched upon with the other Avengers was cool, but in terms of the story itself, there are two major developments in here, and like it's in. I don't want to say more than that because you already kind of like danced around it enough. But it was like this has been a really good series, and I would like when we talk about like doing an issue on here of a book that we've both read. Punisher, I think, would be a good one to do that with.
Oh, I agree. Because I was thinking about this earlier, not in the sense of like, oh, we both need to talk about this, but as I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, this is going to be one of those collected trades that everyone should own.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
Really is.
you're a Punisher fan. Like when you're taking a look at your collection and you're going through it, you've got your standard Batman collected trades, Hush and Long Halloween. You've got Old Man Logan. You've got Infinity. Right. I'm not saying it's like at those levels, but this is one of those books that I think you should have in your collection.
Yeah, and I think too, like we do this to like for people who tell people where they may have skipped out on a series, they read the first issue but didn't really hook them, and it's like, oh, you want to give it a shot. This one was met with a lot of negative blowback before you even got to read any of it because of the symbol change, and I think that it makes it easy for people to pass on it. But I want for people who maybe looked at it and was like, oh, we're not. What are they going to do with Frank Castle? This stuff's been amazing that they've done within this series, and it's something that you it's definitely worth taking a look. So that's part of why we do this sort of stuff is to, again, it's the main reason why what we started the show as. Like we weren't even doing like week to week issues. We were just like the new issues of each week. It was just trades. Like you talk about a book that I've skipped out on, and then vice versa. So that is what the Punisher kind of is. So
yeah.
Anyways, let's go to DC. So we got The Flash 797, Batman Superman World's Finest issue 14, Wonder Woman 798, Superman issue 3, Catwoman 54, Batgirls 17, Deceased War of the Undead Gods issue 8, which is the final issue of that, Black Adam issue 10, DC Silent Tales issue 1. And Joe, did you actually want to talk about Superman? Because I know you're reading it. I didn't know if you
Yeah, just real quick because I forgot to just highlight it here. I didn't mean to go up, but I've enjoyed it. Like I said, like Joshua Williamson, he's done a really great job with the villains so far. 3 issues in, his use of Luther has been fantastic. His use of Parasite has been fantastic. He's been using Livewire, which I mentioned when the first issue dropped. Awesome, because that's a character I remember, from Batman. I mean, Superman the animated series, and it was voiced by Lori Petty, who was Tank Girl. She was also in Point Break, right? So, like, for some reason, that's a character that's always sort of stuck with me. And so, like, it's just been great. His use of villains has been wonderful. So, on this Superman, anniversary day or whatever you want to call it, if you're a fan of Supes, or even if you're sort of like meh, Superman, this I think is a book that would interest you and should read.
I think I'm going to add it to the rotation too. I know I've talked about it the last couple of weeks and last couple of months, and I haven't done that yet. But every time you talk about it, it's been positive, and obviously Williamson is a good writer, so I may have to check that out, and I may have room too because I was really excited about Superboy, the Man of Tomorrow, which is Connor Kent. And I thought, okay, this is cool. I like his look. When he's got the like the punk, rock jacket going and everything like that. But the first issue, like, wasn't a huge fan of the art. The story was fine. Didn't really do a whole lot for me. So I might give the second issue a look, but I could see myself if it's a busy week, this falling like through the cracks because it wasn't enough to really hook me in, which is unfortunate. But the same cannot be said for the 103rd issue of Nightwing, which is out this week. And before you talk about the details of the story, because I do want to let you do that first, I just got to say, people got to respect spoilers. Like, you and I talk about it, like we joke about it on here, but you're like, you like, we're nothing compared to what we see on Twitter sometimes. And I'm telling you, Joe, I'm on Twitter today before I even read this issue, because I read this, I get to work early. I'm like, okay, I try to read, a comic on my iPad when I get to work early. And before I do that, I'm on my phone on the train, just whatever. And I see someone tweet out a page of Nightwing, and I'm like, is that from this week's issue? Because I haven't seen this yet. And then it's like, it looks like it's the last page of the issue because it's like next, whatever. And I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. So then I have the the PDF, and I skim to the bottom, and I'm like, oh, it's not it. So it kind of like, I ended up being wrong because there was a backup story and I didn't realize that. So it still kind of retained the surprise for me. But what the hell is the matter with people? Like, it's friggin' Tuesday in the morning. Why are you tweeting this out? It's absolutely absurd. No respect.
I mean, I get with DC because they release their new books on Tuesdays, and so
I got to work before
I know
9
I know I'm not condoning it. It's fucking stupid. It's one thing. It's one thing if you tweet a spoiler out, because there's a chance that you could start to read it, oh shit, and you can just scroll next. But when it's a fucking visual, a picture, you can't unsee what you saw, right? So that is just some dipshit trying to, it's one thing when I make a spoiler because I'm a fucking old and I just forget.
Very different.
Slip, right? It's not intentional, but like that's intentional.
Yep.
And that is obnoxious because I would have been pissed because this issue, Nicholas, when did Taylor pick up Nightwing? 75, 76, somewhere around there.
I can't remember, honestly.
He's a few trades in at this point, right? He's been writing it for over a year now.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic. I can't tell you how many times I've flipped through an issue of Nightwing and go, fuck, holy shit. I did not see that coming. Right. And the way this particular this arc has been going, it's been excellent. I don't know if there's like a directive at DC right now to like hype the villains, right? But they've been killing it lately with the villains. Like Taylor's been doing, like, even though it's sort of an Elseworld type story, or it's a with the Dark Knights of Steel, but like the villain work there has been great. I talked about the villain work that Williamson's been doing with Superman, and especially in Nightwing, like, okay, what's the big fucking guy there?
Blockbuster.
Blockbuster. Okay, yeah, his stuff, he was fine, but like this past arc, the villains had just been like, oh, there's been like a certain viciousness that I don't think we're typically accustomed to with DC. And so with when the last issue ended, oh shit, you think certain things are like done and settled, and then we get this, and there's a surprise. Holy shit! And it's like halfway through or maybe 2/3 through the way, but like not quite the end. We go, oh fuck, oh shit.
Yep.
I know.
Yeah.
Right?
It took me. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And go, oh man. So it's been awesome. It's because I find that sometimes, and Marvel's done this a bit, and I find like this to have been done with Carnage, like when the villains are a little too OP, and it's just like you're reading the story, you're enjoying it. There's the cat and mouse game, but then like there's always that thing where it's like, okay, the villain is just 2 steps ahead now, and everything that we've built up to now has been useless, kind of thing. But I like when that villain is sort of playing, from ahead, and I love when they think they're playing from ahead. Right? So like Taylor's just done a masterful job here of just the back and forth, the chess game between, Nightwing and what the fuck's his name?
I'm blanking on this. Actually, this guy's name. The guy from Hell. Like, why am I?
Old man moment. But anyways, we don't want to spoil anything, Nicholas, so it's fine.
No, yeah.
But it's been great, and I love the storyline. So like again, we cannot hype Nightwing enough, but like the storytelling, I feel, of the last several issues with this particular arc has just been exceptional.
What's blown my mind the most about Tom Taylor's writing in this series is just how great of a grasp he has on the character of Dick Grayson. Because Taylor he's when it comes to like plotting and everything like that. I'm not saying he doesn't do good character work elsewhere, but when it comes to plotting, he like knows how to mess with people and keep you on your toes and off balance and everything. But he's done such a good job with that character. And I know Nightwing was in an odd spot before he got him, so that may have helped. But like that would have been only at first. He's had a lasting impact, a lasting command of the character. And he's also shown that with the Titans here. He has a whole page with cyborg stuff that is like, I like audibly chuckled, and I don't give a shit about most of the Titans. Honestly, it's mainly just Nightwing for me and like Starfire, but that was because she was with Red Hood and the Outlaws. So that was hilarious.
I forgot that cyborg moment.
Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. But then again, like that's just shows the quality of the writer that Tom Taylor is. It's not just Nightwing that he has a great feel for. He has a great feel for all these other characters too. So he's just, and he's also again writing a story about a genuine character, and it's not always easy to do now. Like we want more like edgy and all that stuff. And I know it can be overplayed, but it's still hard to write characters that are a little bit more tame. And he's done he just from start to finish. He's done a great job with Nightwing in that regard. So.
I told you from the beginning, I feel like what Taylor's doing with Nightwing is what Zdarsky did with Daredevil, right? He just gets the character, understands him, and is telling a great story.
Definitely. All right, let's head over to Image, who has what a week. Why don't you take us through, Joe?
All right, so man, it's a week when I start off with Gunslinger Spawn, and we don't have it underlined to talk about because we've got a shit ton of other stuff to talk about. But Gunslinger Spawn issue 19, Time Before Time issue 22, Hitomi issue 5, Ordinary Gods issue 11, The Magic Order 4 issue 4, The Forged issue 2. So real quick, it's another one I forgot to highlight. I've been reading. I don't know if I'm going to continue. I was like 50-50 with the first issue. The end of the first issue kind of did its job, pulled me in, but again, it's a little, I don't know if it's my cup of tea. But anyways, The Last Barbarians issue 3, Voyages issue 5, Immortal Sergeant issue 4, Summoner's War Awakening issue 1. And this, I had to read this one a few times. Like this is real. And I'm going to make a note. I'm going to say this title, and then when we go off air, I want to tell you something.
Okay.
that will hopefully lift your spirits. But this book is called Dr. Atomic, The Pipe and Dope Book, Issue 1. Odd.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Nicholas.
Some people are calling us the pipe and the dope now. So.
Well, oh yeah. I'm clearly not the pipe.
Well,
and Lauren's not on the show to corroborate otherwise, for you. So we might both be the dopes.
Before we get to the books that I want to break down, one thing I did want to say about Gunslinger Spawn real quick. We may or may not be getting another action figure out of this issue. And we can't say what it is or anything like that because it's definitely a pretty significant spoiler, but I might have to get my hands on that one if McFarlane makes it.
And maybe you'll agree. I mean, I've enjoyed Gunslinger Spawn from the rip, but I feel like the last 3 issues have been the series' best so far.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. The action's been like the thing is like Booth is like is what carries the series more than anything. His action's crazy, and he's been let loose of late for sure.
But the storytelling's been really good. I think the last few issues.
Yeah, and they definitely got me in this one. I thought there was like
an okie doke.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck? Like really? and then it's like, oh, okay, never mind. But yeah. All right. So I got 2 books that I want to talk about. All right. So let me touch on this one then real quick. Terror War issue 1. I had highlighted this in our solicit that I wanted to check this one out. Again, another book that I was like, okay. Like I get what it's about, and it's like okay. The art didn't. Again, another one where the art didn't do a whole heck of a lot for me. And the story wasn't enough to bring me in. So it was just kind of like, like. Maybe I'll check out the second issue, but I'm not compelled to necessarily give this one, the second issue of that, a look either. Then we got 2 massive verse books that we want to talk about, Joe. First one will be the one that we both are reading, Rogue Sun, issue 12. And honestly, man, all I have to say is
book of the week.
I fucking told you all. I told you so. Don't trust Ryan Parrott. And there was somebody else I said don't fucking trust, and I was 100% right about it. Okay, and if you don't remember who that is, good. Like, I don't want you to. Like, but I was right, and you'll know when you fucking see it. Put it on a t-shirt. Friar was right with my Magneto helmet.
Friar was right on the front, fade Friar on the back.
Yeah.
Typical Friar bullshit.
50-50. There you go. House wins.
This for me easily was the book of the week. And that's saying something because of what we got from Nightwing. And Punisher was excellent. This again, we talk about Rogue Sun as sort of being one of our favorite titles in the Massiverse, and right from the rip, we've enjoyed it. There was something that I think we've been hoping to see from Dylan from the beginning. And I think when we talked to Ryan Parrott about it initially, we sort of talked about, the character growth and what we'll kind of see Dylan become and how he changes and grows, as the issues go on. And we get that here. Mm-hmm. And what leads up to that. And then what happens afterwards, right? Like, holy shit, this was storytelling 101. This was, you see, it's like if you're a fan of wrestling, you see the heel, the bad guy, right, slowly turn into the face, the good guy, and then in typical good guy fashion, good guys finish last. So I'm not saying that Dylan was a bad guy, but he's always been a bit of an asshole. Yep. And the transformation we see here, and then sort of the results of that, like, it was just excellent. All of it, start to finish. Best issue of the series, which is saying something, and best book of the week, which is saying something. This was fucking tremendous,
man. Like, this is I gotta like I loved this issue. It was like the colors were insane in all of this too. Obviously Abel is an outstanding artist too, but yeah, like you hit on it really well. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but the developments that go on with Dylan throughout this issue are very interesting. And there's also a lot of like what the fuck just happened in this issue. I think there's more so 2 specific moments, maybe 3 moments that you can say that's the case here. So yeah, I'm very much like Rogue Sun is one of the best titles out there, period. And if you're not reading already, I don't know what the fuck you're doing, quite
Yeah.
honestly.
So one thing I'll say is there, the two villains we get plus plus Rogue Sun, make those action figures. Those all look fucking dope. Action figures. But this is another book that, just like Punisher, when it's all said and done, when it's all collected in one, omnibus or you put it in your collection. It's that good, right? This is a book
100%.
that deserves to be in the collection.
100%. All right, now I will say that I can't so definitively say Rogue Sun is like the book of the week, unlike you, just because again, like there are two books, actually there are three books that I have dibs on. I tweeted all of them out the other day, actually, because this was such a good week for indie titles. On the four titles that I'm reading alone, I had not read Gunslinger Spawn at that point, and then there's other books that Joe's reading right now too. So again, like it's just indies just dominate when it comes to stories. And honestly, when you look at the Massiverse too, there are so many cool characters that we really would love to see turn into action figures. And I feel Rogue Sun is definitely number one on my list. Number two might be a toss-up right now between The Dead Lucky and No One. And we got the second issue of No One this week. And I have called dibs on this. Joe so gracefully pushed me into calling dibs. And this is... You get a mic drop moment at the end of this issue. I've said it like how I love that there's a podcast that accompanies this, but it's like an additional story within the universe, and it's giving you more details about what's going on. We get a lot more here with Ben, who's a police officer who's very much at the center of everything because of his son's involvement and what he's been accused, in custody for. And then with the character No One too, we see a little bit more action with him. And I gotta say, Joe, like for anybody who likes crime stories, especially like superhero type or vigilante type crime stories, if you're not reading No One unless your name is Joe Gilmore, then I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Joe's hands are tied right now, although he almost decided to ignore your freaking offer that you gave me. But
I almost untied them. 100%
Yeah.
almost untied them. I had the first issue queued up, ready to go. And I may have or may not have read the first panel and then decided, Joseph, you made your bed. Now you got to sleep in it. So, don't be a friar. Back out.
Wow. I think it's more appropriate to don't pull a briar like you did before. But yeah, no, it's like this is like No One is the second issue, and honestly too, for me, I loved the first issue and the first podcast so much. I haven't listened to the second podcast yet. I don't think it was out before we recorded. Nope. Yeah, but I loved those two things so much that honestly, I felt like second issue was set like it was set up for a letdown just because of how high my expectations were. And no, it absolutely met him and more. It sucks because I think I'm gonna have to wait till the 10 issues are done to talk about on the show. We'll see, but it's really, really good. So make sure you guys are picking that up this week if you haven't already, and add it to your pull list if you haven't already, because this has been awesome. And I think the first issue of No One sold out like hotcakes. So I think they did a second printing, or its second printing is coming, something to that degree. Awesome stuff for friend of the show, Kyle Higgins. Let's see, Joe. We got Boom, and we both have a pair of books that we want to talk about from Boom this week. Awesome issue of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, issue 107 out this week. Really, really good stuff from Melissa Flores. She really had. We know it's no surprise that she has great command of the characters because of her history working with the Power Rangers before comics, and also with like Kyle and Ryan Parrott when they were writing this story. But man, she really just knows how the aura is very much there of like what I had from when I was a kid as well, which is tough to do still. We also got the Vampire Slayer issue 13, The Expanse, The Dragon Tooth issue 1, which is part of like a larger series, The Expanse, which neither you or I have read. And then we each have a book from Boom that we wanted to touch on. Why don't you go first though?
Okay. So House of Slaughter issue 14 dropped this week, and I've been very hot and cold on this series.
More cold.
More cold. The first arc, just I don't know, it was fine, and then so with the second arc, started to build. Okay, I'm getting there a little bit, and then what we've got here lately with these last several issues has been the series best. I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic. This issue in particular was. It's the first time that like I've really gotten that something is killing the children feel to it. Now, it's been a lot of storytelling. It's been more, there hasn't been a lot of action. And but like this issue in particular, there was a moment that happened. It's been building a bit, and just it was the first time I go, yes, this is what I've been wanting from this series,
Hmm.
right? And it was really good. It was vicious, um, and fairly emotional too, which is great. So this has been the best book of the series, and it made me like, because I started, well, what the hell ever happened with the Book of Slaughter?
That's
And
right.
I read that, and I didn't realize, probably should have realized at the time. It's only a one shot,
Oh,
which is
really?
unfortunate because it was excellent.
I remember you loved
That
that one.
that's what I wanted. Book of Slaughter is what I wanted for House of Slaughter.
Mm.
And it's a shame that it took, two arcs for it to really get cooking, but it's there. We're there. We're I'm now looking forward to the next issue. Whereas before I was just like, oh, House of Slaughter, I should probably read that this week, kind of thing.
I'm curious, like so we're what, 2 issues into the second arc now? I mean, third
Yep.
arc, excuse me. Okay, so do you think after reading these first two that you could have, like, if someone hasn't read a single issue of House of Slaughter and they know they've listened to the show, it's like, oh, Joe's been hot and cold on it. Do you think if they just picked up issue 13 and started there, they'd be fine?
No, no, you
Mm,
really you really need to because with the main character Jace, there's a lot that you learn, about him
mm,
and his relationship to the House of Slaughter, because he wasn't initially from the House of Slaughter. And you really do need all of that backstory because it makes sort of what happens in these last several issues fairly important in a sense. It's just, it took a little longer, for it to really get to that level. And
mm,
so while I was cold, I shouldn't say that it was like terrible and stinks, because if that was the case, I would have just stopped reading.
mm.
Um, but like it's just been a very slow build, but I think we're finally there because something is killing children set a really high bar, and granted it's
Mm.
Tynan's right in that series, right? So like this shit's just next level, especially when it comes to this this property. But like I said, like the last several issues have really sort of built it up emotionally, storytelling wise, and then we finally get some really good action, and we get a great fucking turn here. This was a very excellent issue.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, and especially with indie titles too, like there's only so much history that you like have to go back on. So it's not like, oh, you can go and look some stuff up and then it's like, okay, I can piece it together like you could with, like,
Yeah.
Superman or
No,
somebody like
this
that.
you this you really do kind of had to have been following from the get-go.
Gotcha. Okay, makes sense. All right. So the last boom book that we want to talk about is one that I have dibs on, and again, like this is arguably book of the week. I really loved this one.
I never even
Har-
had a fucking chance on this one.
no, you didn't. I think
I
I
don't even
got.
think I had the fucking book downloaded yet to read before you called this.
Well, in fairness, a little peek behind the curtain for everybody. I'm the one that sees all the books that come out first. I mean, obviously, you can look them up online, but I'm the one that handles the review copies for Geeks Worldwide. So I get
Snake.
I get them first. And dude, first issue of Harrow was great. The second one, like, is just as good, if not better. And then the third one is right at the same thing. And it's like just as good, if not better. This is a can't miss series. This is so good. And I feel like I haven't looked it up or anything, but I feel like it's going to be a limited series. It makes sense for it to be a limited series. I don't know how it could get taken in another direction, like to be longer. If they find a way, okay. But these first 3 issues have been awesome. And the pacing on them too is like it's a little bit of a build up, and then a little bit of like, and then like an oh fuck moment at the end in the first issue. Then the second one, I'm going in thinking, okay, the second issue it's going to be like it might get a little wild, and it got fucking bananas. And then this issue, same thing, and in it, but in a different way. And then the ending, it's like, you fuckers, like Like it's so good. It's like for anybody who's a fan of the horror genre, you're gonna appreciate it. It's definitely like it's very violent. It's not like this like crazy like scary thing that you're gonna see. But I'll tell you what, if you see the horror, if you saw the horror on the big screen, that character would probably scare the fuck out of you. I'll give you that. But this like I do like there's a lot of like light colors mixed in here too, so that does give an interesting vibe. It gives it more of a retro feel than it does like a scary feel. So like I guess kind of like Stranger Things in that regard, where it's like like would you say Stranger Things is like spooky, not scary? Does that sound right? Kind of, Joe.
Um, yeah, I would say it tends to. I mean, what one views as scary is different, is subjective, but
Sure.
I would say it's more towards the scary side. It's spooky. I think it's spooky and something, it's fairly tame, and Stranger Things
Okay.
definitely has more of a suspenseful thriller, scarier sort of feel to it.
That's probably more of what the horror is. Like it's still like I would still define it as a horror comic, but it's not okay. Personally, it's not one that's going to keep me up at night. I'll be curious when you read it if you feel that way, because it's like I don't think you will, but it's definitely like scary, and it's also the art is gritty too with the colors and everything. So really enjoying this series. Either way, like if you like horror comics, you're gonna appreciate this story. So get on it if you haven't already. I will definitely be talking about this as soon as I can after the series wraps up, or first arc, whatever they end up deciding to do. But I really think it's going to be a tight, one arc story. Maybe a second arc, but it feels that way to me right now. So, anyways, let's go to Dark Horse. I know you have a book from Dark Horse you want to talk about, Joe. I also know that Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures, The Nameless Terror issue 2 is out this week, as well as Order and Outrage issue 2.
Yeah, so I read all 8 Eyes issue 1, and I'll try and keep this fairly quick because we got to get to our mainline books. But this I thought this was a very, very good first issue. It's got some horror. It's got some horror vibes to it. The art is it's got that sort of sketchy grittiness to it that I feel works really well with horror books. And it's essentially about these monster spiders in New York City, and you've got a drifter who's been hunting them for about a decade, and then you've got a deadbeat who's just been kicked out of his apartment, and he's down on his luck and all that shit, and he stumbles upon what he thinks is someone committing a murder, but what unfolds, and the way these two characters sort of how they get together and where it goes from here. This feels like a potential TLDR book to talk about. So I'm going to call dibs.
Nice.
I enjoyed it. I liked it right from the rip. It's not like it needed to be hooked in at the end. This first issue just did its job sort of right from Jump Street. So we'll see where it goes. But so far enjoying it very much.
Nice. When you say like it already did its job, and then you add a little extra in the end, that's pretty impressive. All right. Do you want me to fly through these before I do my last book?
Yeah, real quick before you fly through these. So I meant to just say this earlier in catching up. I read Sync issue 11 from John Leaves. I don't know if you had a chance to read it yet, right? Fantastic. Oh man. Yeah, it was awesome. And friend of the show and fellow member of the DSG, Richard Keefe of the Dork podcast had messaged us earlier. And he's all caught up on Sync. He loved it all as well. So I thought this was if you backed the Kickstarter and you haven't read it yet, get on it. It's absolutely fantastic. I can't wait for the physical copies to come in. Of course, I got I got the digital copy as well. So enjoyed that very much. Really fucking good.
It's an all-time horror book. There's no two ways about it. Okay, so IDW, we got Sonic the Hedgehog issue 59, TMNT, The Armageddon Game, The Alliance issue 6, My Little Pony, Best of Twilight Sparkle. From Titan, Joe's book, Moriarty, Clockwork Empire issue 3. From Ablaze, The Mighty Barbarians issue 1. Dynamite, we got Darkwing Duck issue 4. Aftershock, Chicken Devils, issue 3, a title that I have to catch up on and also need to talk about at least the first arc on here. Comicsology, Book of Evil, issue 3, and Canary, issue 6. 2 titles that I have dibs on and will be reading and talking about at some point. down the line. And then, Joe, the last book that I want to touch on before you get into the trades that we want to talk about from AWA Studios, my best friends over at AWA Studios, Black Tape issue 3, of course, by Dan Panosian and Dalibor Taich. Do you have anything that you want to say about Black Tape before I?
No, I'm just gonna mute you while you talk about it.
Oh, I don't think you have the power to necessarily do that. At least for the listeners, you don't. But we get a good, bit of background, an important character, important figure, and really the thing I think that is a great sign in any book that we're dealing with, like horror, Satan, anything like a thriller. Just you can't trust anybody. You got to go in knowing that, and that's very much the case in this series. And we get a lot of that in this issue. Obviously, this is the penultimate issue. Don't know how this is going to end because I don't trust that there's a happy ending on the horizon. I don't trust that there's going to be a oh fuck ending on the horizon either. There's a lot up in the air right now, but it's definitely taken some interesting turns in this last year. So, stuff that I was like, this could happen, and then it's like, no, we kind of move away from it, and so some stuff that I thought might happen is coming to fruition. So really, really good issue, and I cannot wait to talk about this at length on the show.
So I'm just letting you know right now that letting you read this book is your wedding gift. So don't expect a check from me. This is your wedding gift, so enjoy it, my friend.
So when AWA ever wonders why I don't do like many episodes on them for like mainline episodes, this is what I'm dealing with, everybody, just so you know.
Yeah. So anyways,
speaking of AWA,
so this is funny because I have I know I've talked about this, mentioned this title on the show. And I was like, did I talk about? I feel like I talked about this book already. And I'm scrolling through. No, I didn't. So I'm very excited to talk about this because this is a book I should have talked about by now because I read it a while ago. One of the OG books from AWA Studios is Grendel, Kentucky, written by Jeff McComsey, who also wrote The Fourth Man, which is an excellent book.
Yeah.
Art by Tommy Lee Edwards. Colors by Giovanna Nero, and letters by John Workman. So synopsis: for 2 generations, the rural hill town of Grendel, Kentucky has honored its Faustian bargain with the monster living in its abandoned coal mine. A human sacrifice every season in return for agrarian prosperity, the likes of which this rocky region had never before seen. Including the greatest cash crop, the dankest weed in the land. When one town elder breaks this pact, Grendel's only hope is the prodigal daughter will return home to face the creature of her nightmares and bring her all-female biker gang with her. So, as I mentioned, this was one of the OG titles from AWA during their, when they first came out. I believe this came out September, and the Resistance dropped on March 13th, right? The start of the pandemic. So it's only 4 issues. And it's a really, really, really quick read, which is fantastic because I'll talk about a little bit the pacing and the action in this book and the storytelling is just awesome. Awesome. So when I was thinking about talking about this book and, sort of, I've done a lot of AWA books, as you mentioned earlier. And one of the things I think I love most about AWA is, unlike sort of the indie comic books, publishers that we read, what you're getting from AWA when you open up the first page, but an AWA book when you see it. Like Marvel has a certain aesthetic, right? And DC has a certain aesthetic. The other publishers, not really, right? Like with Image, because it's, so many, creator-owned books, right? You're getting various art styles, various writing styles. I mean,
sure,
most of the time they knock it out of the park, right? But, you just that at least if Image is going to put it out, for the most part, you're getting quality stuff. But like, there's not like other than Spawn, right? There's not like that one thing where you go, oh yeah, this is an image book. I can grab it off the rack with. If you strip away, the studio logos, like oh, I'm getting an image book, or oh, this is definitely a Boom book, or this is a Dark Horse book, or whatever. But AWA, you do. Part of that is because they are so consistent with who they use for their covers, and their interior artists. They've got a small rotation of artists that they use for both, covers and interiors. So that definitely helps, but like there's just a certain aesthetic and feel and grittiness when you read an AWA title. You just talked about, what's the book? The Black Tape, right? But whether it's Black Tape, Archangel 8, American, whatever the book might be, right? You just look at it, you go, that's an AWA book. I fucking know it. And you read it and you're gonna love it. And so you get that with Grendel, Kentucky. Now, Tommy Lee Edwards is not an artist that I'm familiar with, and with all the AWA titles I've read, I believe this is the only book he's done. But he's got that feel, that sort of grittiness, that rawness to his art that fits a story like this perfectly. And we talked about Jeff McComsey. We both loved The Fourth Man. He's a great storyteller. He's a great crime storyteller, right? And with this is much more of a horror book, which is great. And so there was just a great cohesiveness between the artist and the writer here with this series that I loved, and I think it really helped because they worked very well with each other. And I think it helped with the pacing when you're reading it, because the art was, it fit the story so well, and vice versa, that bam, 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 bam. You're just going through all 4 of those issues, like nothing. And so this book starts with its foot on the gas, Nick, and never lets up. There's not a moment where there's a lull, or there's a bridge, or there's a gap in the action. It's 100 miles an hour right from the rip. And I fucking love that. And it manages to tell sort of a very Shakespearean type story, but with gore and violence out the ass. Like, it's just, again, the art, I think, is such a great component to this story, because just the visual, everything just fits together, so perfectly. And one of the other things I loved about this is that there's no real good guys, in this book. Like,
nice.
none of the characters are saints. Okay. Like I talked about, like, these guys are, growing and selling, selling drugs. Right. And it makes a town very prosperous, and human sacrifice has to be made, once a year. So like, they're not really good guys, but you're still just about rooting for all of them. Right. Which I thought was a great dynamic, because I've talked about how I love flawed characters, especially when it comes to like detectives and things like that. But like, I love a good flawed character, and it's not necessarily that these characters are flawed, but they're not saints. Right. And so it was an interesting little twist there that I enjoyed. There's one character like, yeah, you're a bit of a prick. But you're not like, oh, I detest, like, the main villain is sort of a monstrous sort of being, right? That that's sort of part of the town, itself. So the characters you get in this book, you have Clyde, who you're introduced to right from the first page, and it's his death that happens right off the rip, that sort of this whole story is sort of revolved around. And it's what sort of brings some estranged members of the family back to the town of Grendel, Kentucky. And then all the shit that happens afterward is sort of a chain reaction to the event that he sort of started right off the beginning of this book. And what's great about the storytelling too is that, you sort of, you get this thing that happens. You don't know exactly what happens, other than, this character dies, and then all the layers and all the stuff that unfolds after that, and how sort of McComsey pieces it together and comes together at the end, was just, it was a really great way of sort of telling the story. And then you have his 2 kids. You have, Denny, who's Clyde's son. He's sort of the new pot kingpin of Grendel, but again, like he's not a saint, but deep down he's a good dude, right? He's trying to do the right thing, sort of like his dad, when you find out was trying in the end to right some wrongs that happened in the past.
Hmm.
And then again, one of the other things that AWA does really well that I love is that they have some of the most badass female characters put on comic book pages. And we get that with Marnie, who is Clyde's adopted daughter. And again, you don't fuck with Marnie. She's a badass broad, and she's the leader of a biker game known as the Harlots, and they're not to be messed with either, right? And they're a very vicious, a very violent crew. And it's sort of Marnie's story that it really is the greatness of this book. And when her story sort of when it comes full circle at the end and it's all sort of put together, the story itself is really good. But it's her story in particular and how everything sort of unfolded and sort of the twist that comes. You go, man, that was awesome. That is what sort of elevates this book sort of next level. And then you get Pap, who is the grandfather. He's the one that started all of this from the get-go, and learning of his backstory is a really intriguing part. And he's the guy that's sort of like, oh yeah, he's a bit of a but he's not a bad but he's not a bad guy, right? But he's not like
he's just a piece of shit.
Yes, exactly.
Like back hair, white jeans.
Exactly, right? But again, his backstory was really good too. So like all these little things just all add up and is excellent. And then you sort of get the town of Grendel, Kentucky itself, right? And the secrets that it harbors is really horrific. And this is what when I was reading this book, one of the first things I thought to myself was, I'm getting Red Fork vibes here. And part of that,
like when I heard you talk about
part of that, is the art. And there's some similarities, sort of with the mines. And so it's not quite like this giant allegory of addiction like Red Fork is. This is definitely more of a sort of a bit of a monster story, horror story. I mean, not that Red Fork isn't, but like there's no there's no subtle metaphors here. It sort of is, it is what it is. It's just a great, story. But man, like the art, I can't get over the art, right? Just how well Tommy Lee Edwards sort of brings some of these things, to life. And it's just excellent storytelling all around. This is right in the upper echelon of AWA books. I recommend this to anyone, especially people like when I say horror, like it's not like your macabre horror story, but it's definitely more of that monster kind of horror story. And there's some violence and some viciousness that take place, man. Like I said, it is 100 miles an hour right from the rip. You fly, you could read all 4 issues, like that, and go, damn, that was a good story.
I'll tell you what, I definitely saw this book later than, like later on, not when it first came out. I remember seeing the art for it, and I didn't realize, is this a book that's ongoing, coming out, whatever. But I talked to you about it, and you had said you had read it, so you were going to talk about it on the show. So I have been waiting to hear from you on this one. I obviously expected it to be awesome, so I'm very glad to hear that. But yeah, like I was like, as I'm listening to this, and like there's like obviously differences, but it did remind me of Red Fork kind of right off of the rip.
It was absolutely fantastic. This is just yet another title from AWA that I'm going to tell people to read until I'm blue in the face. It's absolutely excellent.
Yeah, I'll be checking this one out very soon then. All right, so I want to, in just the interest of time, move on to the book that I am that I've been itching to talk about for a while. One of the many books I've been itching to talk about, and that is 8 Billion Genies from Image Comics, written by Charles Soule, drawn by Ryan Brown, with colors by Kevin Nipstein and letters by Crank. This is an 8-issue limited series that just wrapped up last week, and I would have been talking about it that week so that way everybody can hear about it right away. But again, in the interest of timeliness, wanted to wanted to talk about Thrawn after I checked out that series, and obviously he had been spoken about recently. But this is a great series. So synopsis: if you had one wish, what would you wish for? Now, what if everyone else had one wish too? That's 8 billion genies. At exactly the same moment, everyone on Earth gets a genie in one wish. All hell breaks loose in a very entertaining way, and that's just the beginning. Buckle in for the wildest ride of the year. And I'll tell you what, that's a pretty fair way to put it. I don't think there was like a collected edition from the first 4 issues or anything like that. I think you're just going to be able to get this in a collected edition in all 8. Definitely give this one a look because I went in thinking, okay, it might be cool. Like it's Charles Soule, I'll give it a look. Ryan Brown, all right. Like let's see what this is about. And I was like, this has a ton of potential after the first issue, and it just continues to go more and more all the way up until the final one. And it's funny, Joe. Like, obviously, I don't want to get into spoilers, and it's very easy to stay away from it with when you talk about the ending. But I didn't expect the ending the way that it was. I didn't expect them to. They do a couple, like 2 larger things in that issue, and then the way they wrap it up, it's like, huh, like that was perfect. Like I like never would have been what I would have guessed in a million years, and it totally fits for the entire story and everything else that's going on. So I just like looking at it from a larger perspective, but to dig into some more of the details, this story starts out at the Lampwick Bar and Grill on G-Day. So G-Day is when everybody gets the genies and they just pop up out of nowhere. And you learn about why they do why they pop up later on in the story. So I can't get into those details here. But the characters that we meet in this bar are the ones that we follow throughout the course of the story. And this story spans over a long ass period of time. I mentioned it when the final issue came out. I don't want to reiterate that in case anybody missed it. So that way you can just enjoy that journey. But I will say that the increments of time, because we do like check out like different spans of time. We see like 8 seconds after G-Day started, 8 minutes after G-Day. It's always in increments of 8 months, 8 years. And then it goes, beyond that. So there's 8 issues. So a lot has to get covered in that time. Now so they started at the Lampwick Bar and Grill. The bartender is Will Williams, which is an interesting name. But what's funny about him, and I don't want to say exactly what it is so that way everybody can just appreciate it even more when they read it. He makes a remarkable wish right when the genies come up. I think he has like the first wish. And it makes perfect sense, but it's also like, it feels like it makes perfect sense, but it's also like, man, why did you do that so fast? But as you see over the course of the story, especially early on, why it makes sense for him, and then there's more later on. Again, don't want to get too much into the details there. We also have Brian, Daisy, and Alex. This was a band that was performing at the bar originally. Very interesting dynamics with those 3 over the course of the story. It does not start out all that great early on, and then by the end of it, but later on, the way things progress with them, it is very, very interesting. And again, like too, with this, you see some characters who go in like a negative direction. You see some characters who go in a positive direction. And where we've talked about it, like with Nightwing, where it's not always easy to see positive stuff like be such a central part of stories today, just because we're so used to like dark, gritty, edgy, all that stuff. Like there's a lot of like positive stuff that happens over here, and from negative things, negative developments in the course of the story, but a lot of positive stuff. And like this, like it's kind of heartwarming. Like it's kind of nice to see. It's a relief to see. And this is like all somewhat of an apocalyptic world, because again, everybody gets one wish, Joe. So like it's just and I'll talk about a little bit more about that in a second. But what's your first thought though when you think like everybody gets one wish?
Everyone gets one, Peter.
That can only be one.
That's great. No. I think it would also strive people to be less like assholes to each other, right? Because you never know, you piss the wrong person off, they might use their one wish to like, I want that guy dead.
Yeah, right? Well, and Wes, when I brought it up on Change My Mind during the comic book minute, he's like, "Are we already at 8 billion people? Is that the population?" When I did a quick Google search the other day, it was 7.888, I think was. So we're right about on the cusp of that. he also did ask me a question if you can wish for more wishes, and I don't know. They might have addressed it in there. I didn't double check for him on that. But what they do in this in the series, especially I think the first couple issues, if not maybe a little more beyond, but they do address like different rules, and it's through the genies because there's so much unknown for these people. It's just like, what the fuck do we do? And everybody has one. And don't get me wrong, there are some people who just like right away make a wish, and like you kind of get different shots of the world too, like over the like every time you see a new like period of time has passed, you see what the world looks like. And it's always it's fucking random ass shit in the course of it all. But they address how the wishes kind of work here. Like they're not huge on like the genies are not big on stuff that affects the entire world. And then when people like when they make wishes that cancel each other out too, like that's like okay, you just got your wish and then that's it. Like we won't do it. Like if let's say like two wishes like were made where it's like someone asked for world peace and someone asked for like a zombie apocalypse, they cancel each other out. Like you lose your wish. So it kind of sucks. So again, you got to be smart and like you see it in the course of it all how some people are like they get very very particular about it, especially the smart people. But it doesn't always work out. So it mentioned Brian Daisy and Alex and obviously Will Williams. You have Robbie and his dad. Robbie is a kid, and his dad is a widower and a barfly at the Lampwick Bar and Grill. So, the story arc with Robbie is actually very interesting too. And I can't really get into that too much with spoilers, but he definitely thinks like family first with his issue, but it's also kind of a cool thing for him. But seeing how it develops over time is not, it kind of sucks in the end. It makes you think about like, if you made that wish, because I could see quite a few people making that wish that he did in the course of things. And then we got Wang and Li Feng. They are a tourist couple that wound up in the Lampwick, and they have kind of a bizarre development in their story too. And I think other than Will Williams, Wang, and then one other. No, Wang. There's four people of the list of people that I've gone through. Wang and Will Williams are among the four that make their their wishes first. I don't want to mention the other two because that's a little too like it's early on, but it's still kind of spoilery. It'll take away from the experience. But again, another person who's like very like family oriented with his wish, and it's interesting like the lasting power that his wish has. And then when it comes to the art too, I know I'm talking all about the plot and the characters. It's obviously easy to do that for us, but there's an interesting combination of like zaniness and like edginess to Ryan Brown and Kevin Nipstein as a tandem, because Nipstein brings more of the zaniness with the colors, and you can see it like when you see the covers too. Like there's a pretty decent representation of what you're seeing with art. I think Brown did a cover for each issue, but it gets kind of like it gets wild and outrageous, and it makes sense. You got like genies, they're magical beings and everything like that. But at the same time, you look at like the humans that are included in this story, and especially with like the inking, there's like a lot of like edge to them, and especially over time, you see how worn some of these people get down. Whether it's like you see it in their aging, you see it them being like just so tired from all the bullshit, because there is a lot of bullshit that these characters go through, all in their own way. But yeah, I love, and again, I don't want to get into the ending, but I really do like the way that everything gets wrapped up over a significant period of time. So yeah, 8 Billion Genies. I don't think the trade's obviously not out yet, but I think you guys are going to have to wait until all 8 are in the collected edition, which should hopefully be in the next couple of months. But if you can track down the single issues, by all means. But I really, really loved this series from Charles Soule and Ryan Brown.
Yeah, I really enjoy his writing a bit, and so I'm looking forward to this because this one definitely intrigued me when it first came out. So this will definitely be one I check out. I love the concept, and only having one wish versus 3, I think is excellent because it really does make you think, and the possibilities are absolutely endless. What you could get with this.
Yeah, and a lot of people you'd think a lot of people would take their time with it, but there's a lot of people who do dumb shit with this stuff too. And I will say too, I think this has movie potential, but I also think this has show potential too, where they could really take their time, because again, it spans over so much time. Some stuff kind of gets yada yada, but it does fit. So yeah, you could really take it either way. And I know I didn't ask you about Grendel, Kentucky, but it sounds like that was more of a movie sort of thing.
Oh, 100%, right? Because this takes place, over a short period of time. So, I mean, you could make it a season or a show, where you do a lot of build up, towards it and do a lot of the background stuff. But ideally, I think this would just make a really great movie. Tell it
Yeah.
in a tight hour and a half, 2 hours, just boom. Excellent.
Nice. Awesome. Well, that does it for us today. I will say, if there's ever a day that I would encourage people to listen to the stream over to the audio channel, today was a good day because we did have a headless Violet walking around on screen behind Joe. So we got to make sure every time we're doing the show from now on, Joe, that she's got to be wearing green. So if she
Yeah.
photo bombs, it's just a floating head of Swaggins.
She's wearing her Ninja Turtle shirt today, so that was awesome.
You're razor right, my friend. All right. Until next week, again, it's looking like we're going to be doing a solicit, but either way, stay sexy, Joe.
You know it, baby.